Hello, everyone. We are just going to wait a few minutes to let everyone join in. If someone's joining a little bit late, so we'll just give them a couple minutes. Um, so yeah, welcome.
Welcome. We can also play a little music or a song as in the
Oh
waiting
yeah,
room.
yeah, that would be a good idea. Maybe you can do it because I'm afraid if I start playing with it, it's just gonna get broken.
Well. Hello. I see people coming in.
Nice.
If you want to engage in the chat and you want to tell us from where you're from where you're watching us, feel free.
Yeah, that would be fun. Or if you have any like pressing questions that you would like us to acknowledge or like kind of just give us a heads up what we should mention. Okay, I think we'll give it maybe another minute so that it's like 3 past and then we can start.
Perfect. Today in Belgium is a perfect day to watch a webinar because it's very raining and cold. So I think that whoever is joining has made a very good choice if they're joining from Belgium at least.
Yeah, well, London is actually quite nice weather for a change, but it is also quite cold. So yeah, it's much nicer inside.
Oh, there is someone from London. Hello there.
Okay, I think we can get started because it's 3 past already. So, hi everyone, I'm Beatka and Federica and I today are going to talk a little bit about how to get the most out of your career and how to get the most out of your mentorship journey. We intend to make this session quite interactive. So if you have any questions in the meantime, just pop them in the chat and we'll try to address them right away. So with no further ado, I'll let Federica introduce herself first.
Sure, thank you so much. So my name is Federica. I was born in Italy, Milan, and then as I mentioned before, I'm living in Belgium now. It's been 3 years that I moved here. Uh, I studied marketing and communications along with English and French when back in Italy, Milan. Then I moved, and I always been working in marketing in different fields. Started from finance sector, then the news, the media, and then at some point, I really said to myself, I really need to follow my passion and work in tech and work in gaming. So I went freelance and I started working also in tech, specifically in open source. Right now, I'm a marketing and communication manager at the Linux Foundation, which is a foundation that deals with open source software. And I'm also an advocate for the tech and gaming communities. In particular, I'm a part of the Google Women Tech Makers Ambassador and also a GDG organizer here in Brussels, which is also my way to find a community and people that could share my same values, the same things that I like, in a place that is not the place of birth, I would say. Now up to you.
So hi, I'm Beatka and I'm a founder of a cozy game studio called Chaos Cookie. But this is not really my background. My background is in software engineering, and I've been a software engineer and a tech lead at Google previously. Throughout my whole career, I was mentoring people, and I always found it like one of the most rewarding parts of my job, just to see other people grow and helping them maybe not make the same mistakes that I made and just kind of like help them choose a better path. I've also been always a keen artist, and this is kind of what inspired me to start a game use studio in the end, because it connects engineering, which has always been my passion, with art. And yeah, I've been doing the whole entrepreneurship and my own company for exactly 1 year today. Yeah, it's been quite a journey, and there's been a lot of different changes because of this. And I Speaking of journeys, I also did some like literal journeys throughout my life. I lived in 4 different countries. I moved for studies. I moved for other things as well. So there's been a lot of times where I had to embrace change. So like I said, I've lived in 4 different countries. So I'm originally from Poland. When I was a student, I went for an Erasmus student exchange to Germany, and I decided to finish my master's there. In the meantime, I had an internship in Silicon Valley, so it was another country for a few months. Then I came back to Germany. Then I went to London for an internship at Google. Then I came back to Germany to finish my master. Then I went back to London for a full-time job, and it's been quite an intensive period full of a lot of transitions and trying to do many things. And it's been quite a harsh one. And then luckily when I was in London, it was a little bit easier because I had a full-time job and I was working a group of 7 years until eventually last year, like I mentioned, I decided to go full-time on my own game studio, which started as a side project, and then I turned it into a full-time startup for myself and a small team.
Yeah.
And all of those things made it interesting, so to speak, because one of the most common things that I felt throughout my life was that I just don't know enough. I don't have what it takes. I'm just not good at what I'm doing, and other people could be better than me. And who am I to deserve all those things? And like all of those kind of self-doubt and imposter syndrome thoughts. And I'm pretty sure that these are quite relatable to all of you. So yeah, like which one do you think is you're most guilty of? Like just pop a number in the chat, and yeah, we could see like if this is relatable to any of you. But yeah, I'm sure it is, because sometimes like we just try to like have our career together and be a good adult and be a good daughter or a good sister and a good mother, all of those things. And then we just feel like, yeah, we're not actually that good at any of it. But I think this is the key, that we feel we're not good at it. So
Yeah.
I'll give you a moment to share the things. And how about you, Federica? Did you experience any of those feelings?
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, I'm not sure if I can recall a time in my life in which I haven't experienced that, to be fair. That might also be because my personality is very emotional and sensitive, but to be fair, I feel like it's also part of the human experience in a way. So, as when I was a student, maybe you feel a bit like this during a moment in which you have to study or like pass an important exam, and then you stop being a student and you think, okay, it's gonna be fine. I studied everything, it's gonna be all good, it's gonna be all perfect. And then you kind of start, okay, now that I've done this, what should I do? Where should I pick a career? And what if they don't get me? And what if I'm not good enough? And what if I will be treated like so badly? So indeed, this is something that I can relate a lot. And I'm not saying, and to be fair, I feel like sometimes it still gets me in my daily work, but I feel like it's very, very normal in a way, and it's something that with time you get better at it. And in fact, I'm saying from the chat that a lot of people are relating to all the numbers. Actually, all of those resonate, and there is Soumya. I hope that I read your name correctly. That says, I don't know enough is my biggest fear. And that is absolutely true. Absolutely true. The only way sometimes that I have to cope with that feeling is to try and learn something new, or trying to always be humble and say, okay, so I'm trying to learn as much as possible on this topic because I feel like I don't know enough. However, that is also like a sort of side effect, which is sometimes you kind of want to do more than the others. And this kind of leads you to a sort of burnout because you want to show, not even show off, but kind of demonstrate that you also know that you also belong to a place or like a career or like an industry. So indeed, like striking the balance, I think is one of the challenges, I would say, in these numbers, I would in general. And
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, what
Yeah.
do you think?
Well, I remember when I finished university, I thought like, oh yeah, like you, kind of like I know like everything I need to know now to start a job, and then I started a job, and it quickly turned out I don't actually know anything, and it was very hard. It was a big jump in kind of like how I perceive myself because suddenly I wasn't surrounded by people who were kind of at my level who are also students, but there was a lot of people um who were more experienced, and I was constantly comparing myself to them, which obviously doesn't make sense because if you compare yourself as a junior software engineer, for instance, to someone who's been working in the industry for 10 years, obviously you're gonna look like you don't know anything, but it doesn't really reflect on your value as a person. It's just you literally just don't have the experience because you just haven't done this for long enough. And it's a tricky thing to learn, I think.
Yeah, and I do have a question because I don't you haven't really given like a sort of overview of the game you made, but we worked together for a bit, and so I think that one of your projects, because I know that you have different ones, is also focused on mental health, and all of these topics and numbers do have an impact also on mental health. So how that played and all of these feelings, how did these feelings played into the development of your game, or if they didn't have any role in that? I mean, how was the balance and the influence between these feelings, but also the will to create something that could also help others eventually?
Yeah, so for me, the game Squirrelets started as a side project to have something a little bit different without pressure, like external pressure to finish or to make it great, that I was working on in my spare time. And for me, it was a way of coping with stress and coping with anxiety, just working on the game. And then as the game became a little bit more ready, a little bit more mature, and I started showing it to people, it turned out that it's not that it's helping me while I'm working on it, it's also actually helping other people. And it's making them a little bit more relaxed. And there's so many people that came to us on showcases and like even messaging us on Instagram saying that, hey, this game is great, like it really helped me relax. And yeah, and it's actually really great for me to see that something that I made initially as a way of coping with my own stress is also helping people coping with theirs. But there is a bit of a dark side to it, that the game actually, like, because so many people love it and because it's been getting such a good feedback and won so many awards, that actually right now it's still being such a relaxing experience to work on it, and it creates a lot of pressure,
Mhm.
like an external pressure that like, oh, it has to be like the best thing ever, and it has
Yeah.
to yeah, I cannot allow myself to fail, just take a break, and I just have to like keep going with it. And it's a bit of a darker side that I think I wouldn't have got into if I never actually put myself out there with the game. But I guess all in all it's worth it. But
Mhm.
it's yeah, it's not an easy thing. And I
I
think yeah, it's a funny one. And I think that kind of like ties in with a thing that encompasses all of those feelings here. And that is that very often like we just want to have everything right now. So, you know, we start a career and we want to be like perfectly capable of doing our new job. We want to like have our life figured out. We want to like dress perfectly and like eat perfectly and look perfectly and um travel a lot and do other things, and it's just a lot. And sometimes we also want to like have a job and also run a startup, and it's a lot of things to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do have a question from the chat
Mm-hmm.
asking you if you also feel the pressure to keep making it better. And then a question to both of us saying that we also deal with perfectionism syndrome.
that is, I think, my literal kind of biggest challenge in the whole running a company thing is perfectionist and how do you decide that something is ready and is good enough? And that's been, I think, the biggest challenge for me over the last year because the game is objectively speaking good, but for me it's just never enough. And then it just creates a lot of external pressure, especially because it's like both the game and me got a lot of recognition quite early on. And that is yeah, it just puts this pressure that you need to kind of deliver and you have to keep delivering and keep succeeding, which is very hard and it actually kind of put me in a quite a dark place over the summer.
Oh,
Um, because like you can't run on 200% all the time, and sometimes you just need to take a bit of a break and try to go back to why you actually wanted to do it, and then understand that actually like this pressure is more in your head than it is real, and that like yeah, you had some successes, but it's okay to just take a step back sometimes and just take care of yourself and figure out how to make the next step without rushing into it, because that might lead to like you taking not great decisions in your life.
yeah, I totally understand. And just to also answer the question and to add a little bit on the feeling side, I think that there are a few feelings that are definitely ever present. Indeed, the perfectionism, but it's really like the fact that you always kind of find a benchmark outside of who you are that it's impossible to reach is definitely one of the shared feelings. And also something that it's very hard to can attain because of course each time you reach a new milestone you feel like you're missing out on something else. So each time you decide, okay, this is my path. I'm also thinking about the fact that indeed it's a stressful and that there is a lot of pressure on you, but at the same time I feel like maybe you have found your passion, you're working towards your dreams, but at the same time you cannot really never enjoy that moment because there is always the next milestone. So I totally share these feelings, and especially in your career, this is really something that I feel like you always will have at each step, and sometimes you really don't know how to make decisions, I would say. So, what do I do? Where do I go? Where do I start as a student? And I feel like one of the best tips that I try to implement when I have all of these feelings, and I think about myself either in my career or when I was a student is okay, what can I do now? Or what can I tell myself now that could have been useful to the me of 3 years ago? So, what is something that I can tell to another person to reach the stage in which I am right now? And when I was a student, for instance, was okay, now I passed that exam. Well, how can I help other students pass that? And now that I am a professional, I feel like it's the same kind of piece of advice. So, what are the certain solutions or mechanisms or feeling that I experienced, and how did I overcome them, so that I am at a better place right now? So, I don't know if you have any feelings that you shared or that were very present in your journey and that had an impact indeed on your career, but also how you overcame them.
I think one of the most powerful things that I realized, or maybe someone told me, but no, I think this thing I realized myself at some point, that the things that are very difficult now and are very challenging, um, they will go away, these feelings. Like when you're just starting something, it's very hard, but it's not going to be forever, because if you find something very uncomfortable, very often you're just going to work on it until it stops being uncomfortable. And then it's actually, like you said, very good to look back at where you were even 6 months ago and just kind of compare yourself to yourself from back then and just kind of see how far you've come. Because I think the worst thing that you can do is trying to compare yourself to other people's journey, because this one, like, it's just impossible. And especially for me right now, when I'm doing something that is not that common, I'm being an entrepreneur and just kind of like running a studio, which is always different. It's there's just no benchmark for anything. and it's been a bit of a struggle for me to actually like find a frame of reference, but then there's just not one. It doesn't exist, and I think it actually doesn't exist for anyone in any job, and in any point in life. And it's a bit of an illusion that we kind of have those milestones, like, oh yeah, finish school, go to uni, get a job, get a mortgage, get children, get retired. That's not really a benchmark for anything. And I think, yeah, the only solution to kind of just make it feel a bit less overwhelming and a little bit more calm and peaceful is to just compare yourself now to
Mhm.
yourself from a few months ago, and or even from a few years ago, and see that you are actually still growing as a person, and this is actually what matters.
Yeah, I agree. And during this journey, have you found people that helped you, or people that you were close to that helped you by being mentors, or people that had a different career that were useful on sort of soft skills place? Because personally, I had a lot of people that maybe were not directly mentors in the same career trajectory, but I found the help of people that had maybe faced the same feelings or the same confusion or the same doubts, that were a little bit more senior than me, maybe in totally different in totally different careers path. I do work, for instance, with a lot of developers, a lot of engineers, but I'm not an engineer myself. But I do find a lot of soft skills are very useful for my own career development and personality development. And one of these is, to be fair, what I call the secret sauce of tech. So the fact that the way to deal with these kind of feelings and the confusion also in career and job hunting is the accepting that you're gonna fail. So whenever there is a software, you expect the bug. Whenever there is something new, you expect it to be broken. In science and in research, you can expect to fail 99% of the time, actually, and then succeed down 1% that is actually revolutionary. So these are really, to be fair, help me understand that it's totally normal, and there is not that this feeling that I'm facing or these doubts are just particular to me because I'm extremely sensitive. I might be also, that's a possibility, but it's really like a shared human experience. And since it's a shared human experience, there could also be frameworks and some solutions and things that we can do together, because at the end, we're definitely not alone.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like a bit of a problem of our times that we are told that we have to succeed on our own and be self-made millionaires, and like we do everything ourselves, and we, I don't know, raise families ourselves, and like just the parents and everything. And now like it's this kind of like, I think people start to realize that it just doesn't work like this, and you're a human being, you're a social person, and it's very unlikely that the things that you're going through are just your experience. And then it happened to me very often, and I just even accidentally just shared something, and then it was very relatable to someone else, and then it just kind of just immediately like changed the way I was seeing things, because I used to think that, oh my God, like it's just me struggling with this thing. Um, but then it turns out actually it's not just me, and it is, like you said, a shared experience. And I
Yeah,
think that it's always good to like just talk about these things, and then just see that it's not just you. It's never
yeah,
just you. And I
absolutely.
think that actually all of this that we summarize, what we talked about, can be just summarized in just saying that very often when we do things, they're new and we're scared of them. And this is, well, this is completely normal, you know. It's whenever you do something new, it will be scary. And then if you're never really scared, then it means you're not actually doing anything out of your comfort zone, and you're not growing. And yeah. And then is this what you want? Maybe. Because like sometimes it's okay to just not grow and just take a bit of a chill time, and just be comfortable where you are. But then just because you're scared, conversely, it doesn't mean that you should stop doing something.
Absolutely. I cannot relate more to this sentence. And I felt this especially in two moments of my life. The first moment was when I first moved out of home, in which I had to learn how to be an adult and indeed working and trying to understand my career and what I wanted to do. And I really had the feeling that I was so scared, but I had to do it anyway. I had to do it. I had to learn how to pay the bills. I had to learn how to go about my life. I had to learn how to be confident in my job and how to also maybe sometimes ask for help or ask for advice, actually. And then the second moment was when I started doing freelancing. And that was also like a scary moment because you also need to learn a whole new set of rules and deadlines, and also have you need to start learning about yourself. You need to be honest with yourself. You need to also meet the expectation of your clients, and you don't want to disappoint them. And so there is also a balance that you also need to learn about yourself, and that's scary. That's actually scary because it's really like about human relationship, but it's also career. But to be fair, this is something that I would suggest to anyone who wants to try to venture a little bit alone, to try to have a sort of side job, or like trying to have a sort of creative outlet that who knows, maybe can become their full-time job, a bit like what happened to you. Because I feel like that's true that you're scared, and even though you're scared, you need to push it through anyway. But it's such a learning experience that I don't think almost anything else can give you, at least on the career level, to be fair. So it is something that at the same time I would suggest to anyone. And if you feel stuck in your job, or if you feel like you don't know how to get out in the world and find your first job, try to find a creative outlet, try to find a hobby, try to talk to people that you wouldn't talk to, someone also that might be very different than you, so that you can experience the diversity of the possibility, and maybe you find actually your next place, your next hobby, your next job. So yeah, that would be a bit my piece of advice on the career path, to be fair. I don't know if you have any other piece of advice, if you feel like indeed these feelings are definitely shared and normal, but yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think I definitely second the idea of like finding a hobby or a different outlet. But I think also at the same time, what I've learned is that your career is not really you.
Mm,
And not for everyone, their career is going to be where the passion is. And to be fair, I think what I did, so like making your passion your career, is not for everyone. And I think most people probably shouldn't do this, because when you make your passion your career, then you kind of lose your hobby, and then like you just don't have something to take your mind off work, because your hobby and your passion is your work.
mhm,
And I think we should also talk about that side a bit more, because now like everyone is like, oh, like you should find your passion and follow your passion and make your career like your best thing. But I think it's also okay to have a boring career and to have a little bit of a boring job, and maybe not something that sparks joy too much for you. Obviously, if it makes you miserable, then maybe it's time to change. But I think for most people it's actually not that bad, but we're just being told that like, oh no, you have to have like the best career ever in the universe, and you have to be super fulfilled at work. And it's not true, because life is much more than just work. And there's your friends, there's things you can do, there's your hobbies, there's places to see, and things to learn which are not related to your career. And
mhm.
sometimes just having a stable job which doesn't take all of your time is gives you the means to actually fulfill yourself outside of your work without the pressure of this fulfillment having to put bread on your table.
Absolutely. That's also an interesting take, honestly, because I believe that you can experience this feeling once you can try to make a work out of a passion. So something also new that you had to learn. We do have a couple of comments that I'm gonna read you. So the first one is by Saumia that says that I can relate to this. I have recently moved to a new country and started working in new technology, and it was really overwhelming, but it gets fine over time. Patience is the key. And the second one is that is a comment saying difficult to separate work from non-work. And that's actually super, super true. I do have a slide that I think you can also relate to in terms of feelings shared, also the
Oh yeah.
related comments. And I think that, as you can see, this is really like a shared experience, like feeling overwhelmed, feeling scared, feeling fake. These were a few of the answers that I got out of a brainstorming session with other girls on a workshop on imposter syndrome and career. So indeed, lots of people do share these feelings, and lots of people feel like alone, feel out of place. They underestimate themselves. So. Indeed, this is just a reminder to us that we're not alone in this, and sometimes actually some other people are dealing with these new feelings. Sakana is also saying, as you recommended that a young adult should have side hobby and side career, do you have any recommendation on the type of realistic side career in tech for a young mechanical engineer undergrad? Do you have any recommendation on the realistic side career in tech? Well, to be fair, I do know of a few engineers that a side gig work on anything that is gaming related, to be fair. There are some people that like to develop mods, and to be fair, sometimes they do have like a little income on that, or some people that like to develop little softwares. So for a young mechanical engineer, I think honestly, I'm just saying this because I do have friends doing that, but it could be any type of job, to be fair. So what an example is for me is that I deal with marketing, and I've always worked in marketing, but then I picked up as a hobby because I wanted to learn how to do digital arts, and I started learning a little bit design and so on and so forth. So I did have a few little gigs on design, logo design, and UX for tiny studios or startups. So my recommendation for, especially for a side gig, is actually try to find something that you're passionate about or something that you want to learn. At least what I started with the design path or the UX part. So yeah, for other things, I wouldn't say, especially as a side passion or a side job, to find something that is necessarily remunerative in that sense. So I think it's something that you should put yourself, your heart into that. I don't know, what are your thoughts on this, Beatka?
My thoughts would be, do not look for a side career. One career is more than enough to keep you busy for the whole time. And if you look at it as a career thing, which means like you're looking for another source of income, then you're just gonna and probably burned out and not really enjoying anything anymore, either your main career and your side career. It's a little bit different if you just kind of approach it from a perspective of a hobby or something you do for fun. And then eventually maybe it will kind of turn into a job. But I think especially when you're early in your career and you don't actually feel that comfortable in your main job yet, like doing whatever it is that your job is about, then starting a second thing that requires a lot of learning can be very overwhelming and taxing, and you're just not going to end up enjoying either of those. So I would say just narrow it down until you actually nailed how to do one job well, and then branch out into other things. Obviously, it doesn't really apply to hobbies. Like one of the things that I always enjoyed as a software engineer who only works on a computer is anything that I can touch. For me, it was crafts, especially embroidery is one of my favorite things, and polymer clay stuff. But I have no ambitions in this ever becoming my career. It's just something that is completely different, and it doesn't add the pressure of having to provide income in any way. And I think that this is the distinction. And I think that the gig economy and just having a side hustle for everyone is a little bit of a hurtful approach that like we started looking into as a
Mhm.
society recently, and I don't think it's good for anyone. A bit
What
of
do
a
you
hot take.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point, and I think I do agree with what you said about the fact that otherwise you will just get burned out if you feel like you need to have two careers at the same time. But at the same time, how do you feel like people that maybe want to transition career, how could they just start without losing the security and the safety of having a main job? Something that I noticed is that people can, for instance, maybe join communities or events and conferences that go into that path at first. So they trying to educate themselves first before jumping immediately into a sort of internship or unpaid job or any kind of collaborative work in that direction. So indeed, they also take it slow. But do you have any other experience on that?
Yeah, I do. Well, I did kind of change careers, and I think that kind of like ties with this, like, how do you actually go about something like this?
Mhm.
And the thing is that you just shouldn't try to do everything at once. And I think finding a community is a great first step, and this is what I did as well. So I've been going to a London indie game dev meetups for 3, 4 years.
Mhm.
And this is how I met other people from the industry, how I met some friends. I learned from them a lot about how to make games, how to manage games, like how to actually deal with the whole development. Unfortunately, I did not learn from them how to like you should be making games in Unity and not in Swift like I did, but I know that now. So yeah, I've been actually part of that community for yeah, for many years, and I've only quit my job to do something else entirely after those like 2, 3 years of trying to learn something different. I didn't jump into it right away. I think this is you need to be like super courageous to just have nothing like no like specific pathway, no plan, and then just like jump straight into it. Most people actually do things like I did. So they first kind of figure out what they like, they try it out, like I am kind of like low key. If it doesn't work out, whatever, you just stay in your job. Um, but I think the hardest thing is that it's not motivation driven. Motivation is a little bit useless there. You need to be really disciplined if you want something. And I think the most important thing is to understand why you want to do it exactly. Because if your reasons for this are kind of like externally motivated, it's like, oh, I want to have this career because it's trendy, or like, oh, I want to like be able to say to my friends that I'm working in whatever field. That's not really a good reason. It's kind of like trying to lose weight so that you can be more attractive. It doesn't actually
Mhm.
work as a motivation, but like trying to lose weight, for instance, so that you can do more physical activities. That's a better goal because it's kind of like internal and then it's like for you, not for others. So
Mhm.
that would be, I think, the thing to start from and just kind of try it without expecting to succeed and just slowly dive into it. And yeah, don't rely on motivation because it doesn't work. And what you actually need is like a lot of discipline and actually finding time and making time um, every week or every other day to work on whatever you want to transition in.
Absolutely, I totally agree on that, and I feel like there is a lot of, I would say, it's a strong word. I would say a bit of a brainwashing on the on our brains that says if you really want something, then of course you're gonna reach it, and it's all about the motivation. But to be fair, sometimes it's more effective to just create rituals, really consistent ritual and habits. Because honestly, if I'm waiting for my motivation to go to the gym, honestly, I could be waiting for ages. To be fair, to be fair. So it's really like to trying to build up that habit. People say that sometimes it takes just 21 days. I'm not sure about that, but something that you know that you're used to and that is in the direction of your dreams, of your career, or the place you want to be. even as a student or a young graduate or someone that wants to change career. So if there is one skill that you need to learn, then you cannot create that habit of allocating that time. So I totally agree with that. It's not easy at the same time. So it's not something that it's easy, and especially for those feelings that we were talking about. Some people also say, I don't have the time. Sometimes I just procrastinate. Sometimes I feel stuck because it's overwhelming to think about all the things that I need to do, and it's just like a mountain of stuff to do. So I think that is a very hard job to do on ourselves, to indeed jot down those 2-3 goals. And another tip that I would give here is the fact that, to be fair, you don't even need to be alone. I'm one person that really likes accountability, and I like things when are shared with people. So I always try to find a community. I always try to find people to do things with. If it's something that needs to be shared or learned together, I always try to do it with someone else, because that gives me more accountability and more motivation to do things, to learn something new. And I think that at the same time helps, for instance, for someone who is starting out or is already a professional, to not be alone and be finding someone like a mentor in that regard. And the way to find it, to be fair, it's numerous ways to. I don't know how about you. I was lucky enough that I was a mentee and a mentor. I was a mentee for thanks to the Google programs that I'm part of, and it was super useful because I learned also something very special, which is the roles or possible career path that I didn't think could be a possibility for me. And as a mentor, it was really rewarding to kind of guide the students or people that were in my same position a few years ago in what they could do, how they could approach someone, they could prepare to make their CV stronger. So I think, yes, the idea is definitely not be alone. Pick those 2-3 goals, and also visualization, to be fair. So I find it something useful. In fact, I do have a call to action for the people that are watching us, if they want to kind of sort of have a letter to themselves. That could help with the motivation, because it sets a timeline and a deadline sometimes, but also kind of helps you visualize your future yourself. I think it's something very useful, at least to myself, to define 1-2 goals that I would like to do during the year, in 6 months, in 3 years, in 10 years, and imagining the myself that I will be and how to reach those goals. At the same time, I'm also very much aware that in career or in personal life, you're not always bound to reach that idea of yourself. But at least making sure that you did all the steps, I think that helps on a personal side, on a mental side, and definitely it has helped you to enlarge your network, to learn something new, and to meet new people in general. I don't know if there is something that you share as a feeling or as a solution.
Yeah, I actually have like a funny story regarding to this future self thing. So I did set myself some goals 5 years ago.
Mhm.
And it's been 5 years, and it's kind of time to figure them out now. Like, oh, how did I do? I
Mhm.
was completely off mark. And the goals, they could have worked and I could have achieved them, but I didn't actually account for reality. So I didn't account for the fact that during this last 5 years, I had 4 surgeries, for instance, and I changed my priorities, and like I had some issues in my personal life as well.
Yeah.
And all of those things actually took priority over those arbitrary goals that I set for myself. So if I wanted to actually stick to them and be really harsh on myself, like, oh no, I didn't achieve them, I don't think that would be very helpful. So I think that's kind of like a lesson to both future me and everyone else, that just because you set yourself some goals when you were young and stupid doesn't mean that you still need to stick to them. And sometimes like over time we learn, actually, like I wanted something that was really not right for me, and it's okay to give up on your goals after sometimes when you realize that it's just not going to work, and this isn't just not for you. That was something for your younger self, and now you don't care about this anymore. And and I think whenever I read something that I wrote a few years ago, I'm just like, oh, I was so cute and naive. And then and I have like a lot of compassion for myself now, because like every time I'm like, yeah, I was so ambitious and I was just not living in reality
Oh,
at
poor
all
little
with any of
thing.
my goals. Yeah. So like, I don't bash myself, because like I don't need that kind of like, like, oh, you dumb bitch. Like, how could you think that? You're so stupid. Like, it doesn't really make sense. You're just like, yeah, I was young. I didn't know any better. And it's fine, like you're not gonna achieve everything. Actually, you're not going to achieve most things that you set out to do, because then you realize actually they take 10 times longer than you thought they would.
Mhm.
But I do really strongly agree on the thing that you said before, about like asking for help and finding communities and finding mentors. I think one thing which is a little bit underutilized is that your mentors don't have to have this mentor label attached to them. Sometimes you're just gonna find someone who's not like officially your mentor, but you do talk to them and they're a little bit more experienced in where you want to be,
Mhm.
and you just talk to them. Like, it doesn't even have to be very formal, and you can talk to them like twice a year, and those 2 times a year might actually propel you forward much further than regular mentoring meetings.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And I honestly, the most people that I talked to were indeed people that, as I said, they were not in my same career trajectory, but they were just resonating with me, with my personality, and they were absolutely key in some of the decision that I made for my life, for my career. So sometimes it's really just also finding someone that resonates with you, and going out there in the world, and not locking yourself up in your room, which is sometimes, honestly, for me was difficult. And yeah, just showing up and saying hi to people, learning how to say hi, also networking. Those are all things that take time and effort, and but the payoff is great for sure, also for yourself. And regarding this, indeed, we do have a question that says, I'm looking for mentors, but I am sure how to reach out and ask for their time, and I'm scared of getting neglected and uncertainty around it. So
Mm.
personally, I feel like could be interesting to understand when you say I'm looking for mentors, like why you're looking for a mentor right specifically, and what is your goal in that? Because maybe you already have in your network someone that could support you. Maybe what you need is someone that believes in you, and that tells you, yes, you can do that. Sometimes I do feel more useful to find someone like this that believes in you than necessarily someone that has exactly my dream career. So indeed, choosing your goals out of the mentorship, and trying to understand where you want to go, in a way, kind of will guide also the places in which you will find these people. And eventually you could also just simply humbly reach out to them and say, hi, I would like to have this piece of advice on this decision. What do you think? I feel like you had a similar trajectory, or you wrote that article that was interesting. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, definitely. Like, once you narrow down what you actually want from a mentor, then it will be easier for you to reach out to someone with an actual meaningful thing. Because if you just say, hey, I'm looking for a mentor, that's not very concrete. Then it might be kind of like, yeah, but what exactly do you need help with?
Mhm.
Because that will just make it easier for people to decide if this is actually going to be the right fit. But at the same time, one thing that I think is maybe sometimes not mentioned enough, if you reach out to someone on LinkedIn or by email and you don't get a reply, it doesn't mean that they didn't like what you wrote, or that they think you're dumb or stupid or whatever. They probably just didn't see the message, or they forgot, or they like were busy with something else. So it's okay to follow up with people as well, because
Mhm.
just because someone doesn't reply right away, it doesn't mean anything. And sometimes I've had people actually get back to me after a few months when I was completely in a different space already.
Yeah.
And that was actually the right time for us to connect. And yeah, I think we should also take a little bit of pressure there, that just because you don't reply or someone doesn't reply to you doesn't actually reflect on your value in any way.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's one of the signs of being an adult. The fact that all of a sudden you don't have time and you love reminders, and the others are, I feel like, when you start liking coffee and when you start developing a sort of passion for the sponges to wash the dishes. I love them. I love them. So indeed,
Yeah.
like reminders and also dealing with rejection and maybe sometimes failure is something that it's totally fine. Sometimes people maybe it's not their vocation to help or like to answer, or maybe they're just too busy, and that's okay. We shouldn't take that personally, I would say. So I do have like a quote that I added that I feel like it's very useful for myself to keep on reminding myself. So the fact that indeed anything that happens, rejection, failure, not being the ideal version that I wrote myself to 6 months ago, it's okay, because indeed growth doesn't come from being perfect, but it comes from persistence, from curiosity, and also from giving ourselves a little grace along the way. So saying that it's okay and it's totally fine if we fail. I feel my first feeling in my first job were that I hated what I was doing. I didn't like, unfortunately, the person that I was working with, and I was like, okay, this is not gonna work. I will never be good. I will never be happy. But actually, it wasn't like this. So by saying to myself, no, I need to be persistent. I need to be curious to try new things, to get into the industry that I like, actually helped me more than just giving up. And to be fair, ultimately made me grow way more. Yeah, what do you think?
No, I agree. I agree. And I think one of the things that are also not mentioned very often is, yeah, you don't have to be perfect, you won't be perfect, but even more so, like sometimes you don't even go up in a linear way,
Mhm.
and very often you kind of like have a little bit of success and then it goes down, and a little bit of success and it goes down. And sometimes we look at these as failures, but it's not really. Like, I don't think that anything that we do is actually a failure. It's more like it's a lesson that you had to learn to be able to succeed later on. um, and I think if you reframe it like this, then it will be actually much easier to fail, because you just kind of think about it. Yeah, that didn't work out. What did I learn from this? What can I do better next time? And then
Mhm.
over time, the more lessons you accumulate, the more you actually know what you're doing, and the better you become at whatever it is you want to achieve. So
Mhm.
it's never a linear thing, and you just need to stay persistent, like you said, and curious, and just don't get discouraged that things don't work out. And sometimes it's also okay to just take a break completely and go do something entirely different and come back to your dream side hustle, or to your career, or to just like trying to achieve the next milestones in 2-3 months. Because in a span of entire lifetime, just taking a break for a few months is not really that much. And sometimes it's okay to just coast for a little bit, and it doesn't actually, yeah, it doesn't make you a failure at all.
Absolutely. And I really like what you mentioned before about being okay also in having a normal, safe job in for a certain time, because it's really like sometimes we're used to society and the social media and all the shiny things, and we believe that everyone reaches the success in a second, but that is not really the case. Also the big businesses and the successful startups sometimes have years that they're almost on the verge of bankrupt. I'm thinking again in the gaming sector. I know Baldur's Gate won a Game of the Year, won a lot of awards, but actually the success came after 19 years of trials, and that is the example for so many things. But they kept on going, believing in what they wanted to achieve, and indeed ultimately they succeed. So this is just an example outside of the personal experience, but more into the industry, to just show that it's a shared experience, and we can use this kind of also bigger example as a sort of inspiration, I would say, for our own lives, and just be okay with sometimes having some setbacks.
Yeah, and I think this is also where it helps that your job is not your own thing that you do in life, and or whatever your side project or side
Mhm.
hustle, it's not your own thing in life. And then even if you fail at one thing or something is not going well, you know that other things in your life are still going fine. So I don't know, you're healthy, you have good friends, your body is still able to do things which you want, which is quite a nice feeling. Um, yeah, and it almost never happens that everything in your life goes poorly at the same time. It's usually just one thing. So the more kind of areas you have where you put your focus, the easier it is to have one that is not that great. And sometimes this is just going to be your job, which is not that great, but everything else in your life is nice. So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter that much.
Yeah, we're almost time. So do you have a sort of sentence or like a piece of advice to summarize this vision for you?
Yeah, I think kind of in one sentence, just be kind and honest to yourself because you have to spend the entire life with yourself. And um, yeah, you wish yourself 24/7, so don't hate yourself that much.
Absolutely, absolutely.
How
So
about you?
well, for me, I would say indeed be kind to yourself, have grace, and be okay in staying scared but doing things anyway, truly. So I'm someone that is emotional, sometimes is scared. So I just need to push through things sometimes and my own feelings to reach my goals. And I feel like also the idea of being consistent and creating habits that you also mentioned before has been life-changing for me at some point because I was one of the victim of yeah, motivation and creativity will come and they will find their way, which is actually not true unless you're a genius, but I'm definitely not a genius. So indeed, you need to put a lot of extra work to reach the things that you want to reach.
Yeah, I actually met a lot of people who are really smart and they're considered geniuses and they actually didn't do that great in life. And I think it's that even if you're very smart, it doesn't matter if you just rely on motivation to come and you only work when you're motivated. It actually, there's a lot of data that people who are
Mhm.
hard workers, but even average kind of like intelligence, whatever, they actually do better than people who are smart but don't have the discipline to back it up.
That's actually reassuring because it really shows that sometimes you know don't need to be talented or a genius, but just be disciplined and putting in a little bit of work, and you can totally do it because if someone else has done it, you can also do it. So we are almost at time. We do have 2 minutes for questions, so we're happy to answer one of your questions now. There is an anonymous attendee asking to you, Beatka, saying, thank you, Beatka, for briefly mentioning that you had an experience of difficult period. Did the difficult period cause any time gaps without internship or employment on your resume? I had a period when I took a year off from school of applying for any internship to work on personal life development, and I feel very behind and unsure of how to explain that gap on my resume.
Oh, that's a tricky one. Because it kind of depends on whoever you're kind of looking to, like wherever you want to work. Because if you find a company that is actually okay with it, that's a big green flag because people should not be punished for taking time off to take care of themselves or go to Tibet for a year and be a monk. Like, I don't think it should be penalized. Unfortunately, there is a lot of companies that do that, but I think this is a reflection on them. And it is quite a big red flag as well, that if someone does that. Um, but yeah, like I personally didn't actually have gaps like this. So I kind of like just jumped from like being full-time employed to like running my own company, which if you really wanted to spin a wrong way, you could say that that was like a gap in employment. But it's at the end of it, like I said, like it's kind of like the story that you tell people. And if someone wants to penalize you because you took time off for a little bit, I think this is very unfair. And it's probably best to just find a different place that doesn't do it. But I know that sometimes it's not realistic and it is very harsh world out there. But I don't actually I honestly don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah, I think that there has been a positive trend regarding this. So I feel like more and more companies that luckily are welcoming people that have a non-traditional career trajectory, or they have gaps in their background in careers. So I do see a positive trend, and I do support the idea that maybe if there is someone that is looking at it under a bad light, maybe it's not like a good place to stay. But at the same time, I feel like you could take that moment that you took off for whatever reason to just assess your needs and be your needs and be assertive of what you needed at that point. Maybe you needed to take it to focus on yourself, to kind of re-understand what you wanted to do with your life, to invest in your education. Um, I think that you really shouldn't feel behind, especially regarding like a job that possibly if you applied, you feel like you have all the skills. It's really like an addition to yourself. In my life personally, I had a moment in which I had a gap, but that was during when I was a student. And that moment of self-reflection and the fact that I went through some personal matter honestly helped me grow as a person incredibly. And there is something that I will never feel ashamed of or feel behind, because it gave me like such um, a deeper understanding of people relationship and of myself that I think the school years in that moment, those months wouldn't have done to me. So I think embrace that, own that gap, and be okay with that. If you feel like you have a little gap in a knowledge for a job you're applying for, then indeed go back to the habit and just trying to learn a little bit more. But just own it and be okay with that, because people will definitely accept your life and your skills for sure, if they're the good ones. Voila. So if there are no other questions, I see that we are at time. And so
Yeah, so
thank you as
just before we finish, if you want to find us and like talk a little bit more, then you can find us on LinkedIn and well, me on the website, and you can also place credits wherever you want, as long as you have an iPhone for us for now. But yeah, thank you everyone, and yeah,
thank you. That was
it
a
was fun
pleasure.
talking to you, Federica.
That was my pleasure. Always nice talk to you, Beatka. And thank you also to all the attendees of the webinar. Have a good rest of the day.